What's up you guys, this is Rob from Gay Guy Plays, and today on The Snapshot, being tied down has never been this fun when we take a look at Harrow. Alrighty, so in addition to the basics, we're going to be taking a look at my finalized builds, 2 of my finalized looks, as well as the whens and whys to use his abilities, and some really interesting weapon synergies. Now, you can pick up his blueprints by completing the Chains of Harrow quest, however, do keep in mind, this does require you to have completed the War Within, and have access to the Mott Survival in the Void. His neuroptics can be found during the Kuva Fortress Spy mission, his chassis in the Void Fissure missions, and his systems in the new Defection missions that are available. However, if all of that is too much for you, you can always pick up in the market pre-built along with a Warframe slot and a Catalyst for 225 plat. He's also available in the Harrow collection, which is 675 with a whole bunch of bits and bobs, so I'll let you go ahead and take a look at that for yourself. Now, let's take a look at what Harrow's got locked away, starting with his passive, which is handily blocked by my face cam. I am very sorry about that. But for those of you who are unaware, his overshield capacity is doubled. Now, of course, with the max redirection, this pairs fantastically and leaves him topped off at 3,510 with overshields. This is amazing with Penance because Penance draws its duration straight from the amount of shields that you sacrifice. So the more shields that you have, including overshields, the longer the duration of the Penance buff. Moving along, Harrow's first ability is Condemn. This one sends out a rolling wave of energy that ends up chaining enemies within its path, granting you shielding for each enemy struck. Now, the one thing that I do want to point out about this ability is that it does have a bit of a travel time. So you can actually cast this preemptively if you see like some enemies starting at a spawn camp and you're a little bit further away, you can go ahead and cast it, and as they approach, they will end up running into the wave and getting chained. Now, if it wasn't already completely obvious to you, Condemn pairs extremely well with Thurible as it holds those enemies in place, allowing you to get headshots and restore large chunks of your energy. And as a little bit of a synergy tip, I would highly suggest using Condemn right after you use Penance to be able to restore any of the shields that you've sacrificed in order to grant yourself a buff. Speaking of Penance, this one is a really interesting healing ability that has some very interesting weapon interactions. Basically, you smack yourself a couple of times to sacrifice some shielding. The shielding that you sacrifice determines how much duration that you have on these buffs. You get a reload speed buff, a fire rate buff, and every enemy you strike ends up healing your allies within the affinity range for a portion of the damage that you've dealt. Now, there are a couple things to note here. First off, this is not affected by your normal range mods. However, it does work off of your affinity range, which means that the Vazaran focused discipline approach will buff this up by an additional 17 meters. In addition, I want you to keep in mind that although this does buff fire rate and reload speed, this works off of any damage dealt, which means you can totally lay down a Zenistar disc and see yourself rack up a whole bunch of heals passively. On top of that, you can use this with Nightwatch Napalm from the Ogress, and your Torrid Clouds will also do the same. Next up is Thurible. Once activated, Harrow begins to swing his Thurible back and forth, channeling his energy into a restorative aura around him. You'll see a little insignia on the screen with a number of the energy restoration attached to it. Once you go ahead and deactivate the ability, it will stop channeling, stop consuming your energy, and boom, that's the amount of energy you will restore to your allies per kill. Getting headshots does have a fixed multiplier of 4 times, meaning that you can get large chunks of your energy back. This is absolutely delicious. This is a great thing to keep your team topped off at. However, one of the things that I do kind of want to point out is that I will always start off a mission with this ability, and then I'll grab a couple headshots, and then I can start laying out condemns from there. So I usually don't go from Thurible straight into Condemn unless I've got a large enough pool to work with. Harrow's last and final ability is Covenant. This one is pretty goddamn insane. Basically, it makes your team invulnerable for a short period of time and takes all of the absorbed damage and converts it into a critical chance buff. The critical chance buff is additive, so don't worry if you have a low critical chance weapon, but the real key here is that the headshot critical multiplier is 4 times. So whatever you see on your screen, multiply by 4. In fact, there should be a little UI thing down at the bottom that tells you exactly how much headshots are going to punish, but this can push weapons that normally don't have any crit at all into orange crit territory. This is absolutely insane. So a little bit of an advanced tip with this one is that it actually pairs extremely well with Penance. You can use it after Penance or you can use it before. Basically, if you see your team in duress, go ahead and activate Covenant, then right after you activate Covenant, go ahead and turn on Penance. So while you're invincible, you're not really worried about how much shields you've lost. You can actually go through and start healing your team really without thinking too much about it. Then go ahead and toss out a couple waves of Condemn before the ability wears off so that you're full shields when it does wear off. Now, the cool thing about that is basically your team has kind of like a health freeze because nothing's gonna hurt them. You're healing them at the same time, and then after that, you have all of the crazy critical damage to either continue healing your team or to just wipe out everything that's come after you. Now, aside from the standard survivability mods, our big focus was duration and power strength. We've also splashed in a little bit of range and a little bit of efficiency for good measure. And one of the big things that I know people are gonna be like, Rob, where is it? Where's your fleeting expertise? Well, I felt like it took a little bit too much away from duration, and that Prime Flow was actually a bit of a better fit due to the fact that we have Thurible. Now, Thurible, of course, you can manage your energy really well, and that's one of the big things that kind of happens with Harrow, is you really want to pay attention to managing bars. Whether it's the health bars of you and your allies, whether it's your shielding bar to make sure that you're going to have a decent duration for penance, or whether it's your own energy so that you can go ahead and toss out a bunch of condemns to give yourselves the shields for penance. There's just a lot of things going on with Harrow where you kind of have to keep an eye on bars, and I felt like this was the best setup that fits me. Now keep in mind, this is my build, this is what I enjoy playing. It's not necessarily something that you're going to be doing. Just, you know, feel free to use this as your own inspiration. This is not law. This is just the way that I prefer to play. Moving along, I have finalized my last two color setups. Now, I wanted to kind of give you a heads up on where these things kind of came from. First and foremost, I was thinking Priest. I wanted him clerical. I wanted it to be very pretty, very light, and the rose gold looks absolutely amazing with this. So initially, what I was actually rocking was I actually had some red on here, so it was actually going to be like more burgundy. It wasn't that exact color, but I had kind of gotten the feeling that I'd been using reds and warm colors a little too much, so I did want to mix it up. But if you wanted to use this specific kind of color setup, you'll notice that it's actually pretty flexible, so you can use a bunch of different colors in place as kind of like the accent color, which is kind of nice. It gives you some flexibility. You can kind of personalize it in your own way, tweak the bases however you like, and, you know, kind of mess around with it. I also wanted to make sure to kind of keep the lightness creamy, so I tapped into the Twilight palettes, and of course we've got our signature rose gold in there. Energy color, this was actually really cool because I was messing around with it, and originally it was going to be like a rose gold kind of energy color, and then I decided to go with something a little bit cooler because when I was playing it in game, it looked a little too peachy. And I was like, no, I want something pure and light and pretty. And this actually worked out absolutely perfectly for me. Sliding on over to the slightly darker side, we've got this look right here, which has definitely been taken down a few notches as compared to the previous. The last one was very like Priest, holier than thou, very romanticized, very light, and I wanted to take it into a place that was a little bit grungier. Now, I didn't want to go full on like dark Priest because I know that's where a lot of people are going to go with it, especially with all of the things that we've seen floating around about him. I haven't played the quest yet, so I don't 100% know. I just saw what I saw, and everything looked dark and scary, so I didn't kind of want to go full on that direction quite yet. I wanted something kind of like midway, like a traveling Priest. So I thought that this color setup was really nice. This very rugged kind of denim blue, paired with, it's like blue and brown are like two amazing colors to kind of tie together. And the real thing that inspired me for this, and you're gonna laugh, but if you look at these boots, look at those boots. Look at those boots with that brown. I think that that looks absolutely amazing, and it's sad that it's like one of those details that not too many people are gonna take a look at, but those look absolutely fantastic, especially with that brown. So that really kind of like pulled me into this whole leather look, and I was like, okay, I'm into it. He's kind of like a rugged traveling Priest. Next thing you know, we have to have a little bit of a little contrast with the blue, but we wanted to keep it kind of the same tone. So as you can see, even though it is like an off-white kind of grayy tone, it's definitely floating a little bit cooler than it is warmer. And of course, we had to go with a nice antique gold instead of the super bright rose gold, and this is one of my favorite metallics for that. As you can see, we can take it even deeper and darker, which I kind of like, which is almost making me think maybe we should play around with that. But like, either of these two colors do well. I don't want to take it too dark because the look itself is already a little bit deeper, and I don't want it to go like too far into that area. Lastly is this red. So as you can see, it's a really dark red, it's really deep, it's really rich, and I still wanted to keep that kind of sinister feel to him, but it's really hard picking out the right red. So, you know, going to the simulacrum, playing a bunch of games, kind of test out what looks right to you. I was kind of going for an orangier red, and I know that's not necessarily what it looks like here, but legitimately for me, I just didn't want it to be the bright flashy red that I have on my Loki. I didn't want it to be like, because I feel like bright flashy red feels almost celebratory to me. You know, I don't know if that's the same for you guys, but I wanted something a little bit darker, a little bit deeper, something a little bit creepier, and I felt like this was just the perfect color to suit him. And that about wraps it up. Let me know if you guys have any specific tips and tricks that have been working really well for you that I did not mention here. Harrow has just been out really recently, and there are a ton of cool combinations that you can use with his abilities, so I'm sure there's probably something that I might have missed. I kind of want to have like this collective knowledge base in the comments of like helpful Harrow tips, because you know, sharing is caring, so go ahead and spread that around. And that pretty much does it. So as always, love somebody, hurt nobody, and touch your body. Now I've got a quest to go and play, so I will see you guys next time. Bye bye.